Well, I am here today with Eric Grimsley of Grimstrong Fitness. Eric, thanks so much for jumping on today, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Sweet, yeah. So just kind of want to start off with just telling us a little bit about your story and about your background and how you kind of got into to starting strength training for youth players and what's your kind of whole philosophy with that. And maybe give people a little bit of background on what Good Strong Fitness is.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So my background, I grew up here in Missouri City, Texas. Played sports all my life, went off to college, played a few years of college football at Texas State University. I was studying there to eventually go into physical therapy school. After college, I worked for a couple of years at outpatient physical therapy clinic, trying to get into school. It wasn't quite working out. And I was kind of getting burned out on the idea and decided to, well, while I'm waiting on hearing back from physical therapy schools, let me get my personal training certification and start that and just see what happens. So I got that done, hopped in with a gym that I worked for about 8 years. But once I got into personal training, I just started trying to consume books, information, just wanting to get better, and really enjoyed it. Fell in love with that process of helping people get better. Yeah, and then once I was at the gym for quite a few years and was looking to break out on my own and start doing my own thing. COVID shut down happened. That kind of that kind of sped up the process. I was eventually going to leave anyways because I wanted to be my own boss and kind of start something out here in the neighborhood for reaching out for other adults and the youth athlete. And so I kind of forced my hand to go ahead and start making it happen. And yeah, here we are. So last June is kind of or when the COVID shutdown happened, I started training my next door neighbor's son who plays baseball. He was a pitcher for Ridgepoint High School, and he had fantastic results after a few months. And the mom posted in the neighborhood group about the results, and then just one thing led to another, and then now I have a bunch of youth athletes in there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I can definitely attest to that because I had a few players who have worked with you and they just kind of raved about how much they felt more confident working with you just on their athleticism and just feeling like they were a little bit more explosive as athletes and just a little bit more durable, not worried as much as getting injured and stuff like that. So I can definitely attest that you're doing awesome work.
Cool. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, it's good, because a little bit of my background too is that, man, when I got to college and college athletics and talking with you before, I know you can probably attest to it as well. Like, man, I was behind, on strength training. Obviously football, soccer, there's some different things there, and I just was not doing enough. I was like, dang, I am way behind all these other guys coming in. And when you get to college, it's equal playground, right? You might be the best in your high school or one of the top kids playing in your high school, but once you get to college, boom, everyone's just as good as you, if not way better. So you really have to get after it. And so what Grimstrong Fitness, what I want to bring to these athletes is something that I didn't have, something I wish I wanted, or getting ready for my whole high school career. I trained at a sports performance facility while in high school and stuff. It's just, I did not, and it was a lot of sprint work and agility work and, sport specific stuff. And then we hit a little bit of the weights, but never really did some of the main strength movements that I feel athletes need. So while I got a little bit faster, a little bit quicker, which was good, man, I lacked the strength. So by the time I got to college, I was just so behind everybody. And so what I want to bring to these kids is a good structured strength training plan, where we just focus on progressive overload, which just means adding a little bit of weight, every time you're in the gym. Obviously perfect, good technique, sound technique. The best ability for an athlete, is to be available,
Yeah, I love that. Yep.
'cause there's a lot of kids that, and even adults these days too, right? Ego lifting, or maybe they just don't know better yet, but they try to push. Oh, let me see how much I can lift today. Let me see how much I can lift now. It's a week later, so it's a process of, all right, you're essentially influencing your nervous system to handle more and more weight. So when you go in the gym and you try to put pedal to the metal, you're just going to burn yourself out and end up getting injured. So, when kids are doing too much, or they're trying to lift a max effort attempt all the time, their body's just going to break down. Their body's not going to give you that. So you get injured. There's signs and things that while lifting, you'll see people like strain on reps or different things. Those are the little kind of signs that you need to kind of be aware of, all right, let me end my set. So what I'm getting back to it, I want to give these kids a good structured plan, a good process. And so far, all these kids are seeing great results in here. Faster sprint times, lifting more power. Like there's a lot of baseball players I work with, more power at the plate. Fastballs are getting faster, so
That's huge.
yeah.
So what do you think? A lot of great stuff, really, honestly. I really like the fact of saying like it's a process, because I tell that to my players all the time. Like it's a process of trying to improve. Like you can't think like, if you just went out and started juggling the soccer ball and you just haven't, they expect that after juggling for even a day, maybe a week, they're going to start being able to do 100, 500, 1,000 juggles. But it takes time. Sometimes it takes weeks, sometimes it takes months. And helping them to understand that there's a process in everything that we do is just so important. It's so critical and crucial to their development as people and as athletes.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's just, sometimes I tell these kids too, like, hey, you're in here, 2 or 3 times a week. Like, what else are you doing outside of here? Because, back to that kind of sports performance place I was at, oh, we're doing sports specific stuff. It's like, man, and what I know now, we need to get stronger. Your sports specific stuff is actually practicing and playing your sport, so you need to go out extra. Some of the kids I train, right? Some of them have come to you for extra work. Sometimes get together with a bunch of friends and go play pickup games, which is what you need. Some kids will go with their buddies to the batting cages, extra work off tees, extra, pitching work. That's where your skill work comes into play. You can't just show up 2 to 3 times a week for strength training and then you're not practicing until the season starts. You need repetitions, right? Just like,
yeah, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I'm just saying, just what you were saying, you need the reps. So, a drop in the bucket every day,
Love that.
Fills up. By the time, a month or so passes, like I was recently last week talking to some kids, like, hey, if you do 50 extra push-ups a day for an entire month, that's a lot more reps than you would have done if you just didn't do anything on those days.
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
It adds up.
It all adds up. It all adds up. And I think sometimes I think players, they get overwhelmed. I think for a lot of times I've learned with players, it's like they want that. They see something, they have a goal, they want to get there, but then they get overwhelmed. And I tell them, just break it into little parts. What are you doing today that you're trying to be better than yesterday? And I think that's the mindset. I am going back to what you said. A really good point was like, you talked about like players just going out and playing pickup with one another, or like, what are you doing on those off days? And it's like, that's fine, go play pickup, but can you do even a little bit more, even if it's just like I said, just juggling the ball for 10 minutes. Maybe it's just doing, maybe it's just doing some, I'm thinking of myself, just like some cone work that just keeps you so sharp, so that when you come into, like you said, you come into preseason, you come into season, you're not feeling like, man, I haven't really touched the ball, or I haven't really done anything with soccer for the last 3 months. I had a player not too long ago tell me, he was like, Coach, I haven't touched the ball in like 2 weeks. And I said, why would you ever tell me that? Why would you ever tell your skills trainer that I haven't touched the ball in 2 weeks? But I just think it's that mindset where like, well, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it later. Or there's so much I need to do, so I'm just not going to do anything. Just like start with where you are, because that's going to, like you said, that one drop today is going to end up filling up your bucket if you're doing it consistently.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, there's so many things out there these days with distraction, every kid has a phone, social media, always scrolling, the online video games and all that stuff. Not to say I didn't play video games, growing up too, like I would, but I'd get tired of it and I'd go outside and play whatever sport, with whatever friends, etc. But it's getting rid of some of those distractions. And like you said, something as simple as, all right, let me get outside. Don't really feel like doing any work today, but look, can you at least give me 10, 15 minutes of juggling every day? And that little bit is going to help that athlete.
Absolutely. Okay, so wanted to kind of change gears, but I think you kind of touched on it already with the whole idea of the philosophy of like the mentality, the process, right? Of how you can get better. But what really drew me to you, and what we kind of connected on before, is the fact that like you really want to help players or athletes as people, right? You want to support them as people. So what I noticed, and I'm sure if people went through your Instagram or some of your social media, it's constantly you're praising your athletes. You're talking about who's doing extremely well at baseball, or who's doing well on the soccer field, or on football, or whatever athletic endeavor that they're in. You're really constantly trying to support them. What kind of what's your philosophy behind that? Why do you think that's important to constantly be just kind of pushing out and supporting your athletes online?
Yeah, I think too, with the whole social media world, there's a lot of negative things,
Mm-hmm.
every day just trying to be shoved down our throats. It's good to acknowledge the athlete and their work that they're doing. It's, as a coach, athlete, oh man, think this is all on you. And it's like, no, man, all this work you're doing, this is your success. Like, I don't need any part of that. Just, you're in here, you're showing up, putting in the work, it's so just want to praise those kids, just to say, hey, look, you've increased this amount of weight on your call it a squat. You're hitting home runs when you've never hit one before, things like that. It's and just kind of it gives them that little boost just to keep going. And, a good quote, when working with athletes and just anybody really in general is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Okay. Yep. Yeah.
So I'm invested in these kids, right? Even the adults I work with, like, I want to get to know these kids. I want to know how they're doing in school. I want to know what they're up to, just favorite teams. We just, we have a good time in the gym. We work hard, but we can have a good time in the gym, and who knows what's going on, in these kids' worlds. There's a lot of things going on. Sometimes, kids are having a bad day and might be show up late. Who knows why they're showing up late, but I'm not the one to, why the heck are you showing up late? Now you got 50 push-ups, this and that. And it's like, man, what if they just had a terrible day? Stuff's going on at home. I want this to be a place to where it's the best part of their day kind of thing. I think as an athlete, or as coaches, we have to have that mentality of providing a space where these kids know that we care, and they know we have their best interest, in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And even following up on that, like being able to go to games and support them and know that when they can see you in the stands, or if they see you after the game and they're saying, "Oh man, like coach really cares," like, or Eric really cares. He came out to my game and he was cheering me on the entire game. Like that goes so far in letting them know that, hey, I care about you as a person, and I want you to know that I'm invested in you. I'm invested enough to take time out of my day to go and support you. That's so that's so critical. That's so crucial, and like letting them know that, hey, what I'm saying, I'm backing it up with my actions.
Yeah, and it's fun too. I love to go see how these kids perform, and see how the teams do. I mean, I love all kinds of sports. I can play pickup, whatever. I'm game competition. And these kids are investing their time in here, working hard. I want to go see the product of that. And it's fun. Going out, checking out the soccer games, football games. Wherever I can get to, and so it's good. And some of the parents have said like, hey, man, they've never had coaches that have come out and done this before. Thank you for coming. And, it's just, I genuinely want to go see how these kids do and
Yeah.
let them know I'm behind them.
And that's I think that shows your dedication. It shows that it's not just lip service for you. It's really about, I want these players, and I want these kids to know that I'm totally all in. I guess my next question would be, did you have, I know you said you went to the sports performance place.
Yeah.
Did you have someone in your life who was kind of doing that for you? Did you ever have anybody who was like constantly there, or did you have maybe one of those people coming to your games, or it was just kind of like, hey, this is a way that I know I can support my players. This is the way I know that I can support these athletes. What kind of got you going to games, or did you have a mentor who was doing that for you?
No, outside of my parents, my parents always came and watched my games and stuff. So, you have that there. Outside of anybody else, really, family, friends, right? That came and watched, but no one specific to, that sports performance place. Never really had people kind of come out and see, what's going on. But, just that is what it is. But yeah, so I just wanted to, with my time and learning how to work with people and how to become a better trainer, it just goes back to that quote I mentioned about how much you care, and just you show them that the parents really appreciate it. It's the little things that can go a long way. As a parent, I know when somebody does something for my child, it's like, man, it means so much, and so I know that if I show the support that I am showing, it means the world to these parents, so.
Absolutely, for sure. That's awesome. So, kind of summing up what you just said, just understanding that even if you didn't have that kind of person in your life, just seeing how you could be able to help your own athletes that you work with, that they appreciate it, that the parents appreciate it. And also, like you said, you're just kind of, as a parent, that goes a long way. That just helps you, right? And it's kind of, that's something that I think about in my own philosophy. I do things a little bit differently because I want the whole family to know that I'm invested in not just this player, but I'm invested in the whole family, because I understand that it's no one kind of succeeds in a vacuum. It has to be all of us kind of working together, whether the parents encouraging players to do what they need to do. It's me showing up at games. It's all this stuff, the player making sure he or she is bought into what it is that I'm saying. Like, all of us have to be kind of there to support this player, but it's all of us together who are trying to really raise up. And I think about the quote, like, it takes a village to raise a child, right? I think that's really something that I buy into when I am trying to support players in my own program.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exactly true, right? You need that community to, I think, we can provide, right, where we can provide some insight or give these athletes too some support in that they can maybe open up to us, maybe that they would not maybe open up to their parent, So I like to, have that, tell my athletes, hey, look, you want to talk fitness, nutrition, whatever, life, like, hey, I'm here. Let's open that up. It's helping any way I can, because there's folks that, maybe don't have a male figure in their life. And some of the kids that I've trained with kind of see how I am with my training, my kids, my family, and coming in and they see that as maybe a little bit of a role model. So I had a mom that it's really cool that she reached out and told me, but she had told me that situation, like, hey, this is awesome that he's coming with you and he's learned so much. His confidence is turned around. It's just been a whole experience for him, and so that's why we coach, right? Those are the things you love to do.
Those little things, those little comments, right? That I know I had a player who told me, he was like, yeah, I don't really see you as, I don't just see you as a coach. I see you as a mentor. I see you as someone who I can go to. That you're right. That's what makes coaching so, so rewarding, really. I have friends who are like, man, why are you, they may be still playing all this stuff. They're like, I don't know if I can coach. I was like, I think playing is so fun, but there is a certain level of selfishness about it. And with coaching, it's so much more about being selfless and giving more to others. And I think that's when you realize that you can be selfless and you can get so much more back than you could being selfish. It just makes it so fun. It just makes it so like, man, I did something that's worthwhile.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Another question I wanted to kind of dig into was kind of on the mentality piece, right? Again, a lot of times, a lot of my podcasts are centered around like, what is the mentality your player needs to have to be successful? And what are some of the common, I guess, characteristics that you see in athletes that are starting to see success? I know you're constantly posting about players who are either hitting their PRs and they're lifting, or they're starting to get college offers. What are some of the common characteristics that you see with some of the players who are athletes that you're working with?
Yeah, I think a big thing, consistency. The kids are just showing up and working, and they want it. They want it. I have some of my baseball player guys that I train that are doing really well. They would, like last summer, and even this past summer, they would show up to workouts in their uniform of a game. They just played in a game. They came home and they came right over because they wanted to get in their session and they knew when it started. So like, it's stuff like that, it's coming right over in a uniform, How many kids want to go like, oh, okay, it's me, hang up my cleats and let's go, hop on, play video games or whatever. These kids, they want it, man. It's they put in that extra work. So it's just showing up consistently, right? If you train, 2 or 3 times in 1 week and then you don't do it again until 2 weeks later, you're not getting anywhere. Things need to be done consistently, and they just have that drive. And then, for athletes too, it's important to find the other kids on your team that want it as much as you. Or maybe that kid's like on the edge and he needs to get grouped with some of those kids that are doing that extra skill work, are doing, the extra strength training work. So to help them take them to new levels, right? They talk about you are the average of the 5 people you hang around, so if you're not hanging around those athletes that are doing extra work, maybe you should be, it's just getting that mentality. And I think too, a lot of times, athletes maybe just aren't aware of how much more, work they need to be doing. That's kind of one of the things I fell into, and I previously mentioned was, I'd show up and train at the sports performance place 2 or 3 times a week, and then thought I was good. I needed to be doing the extra skill work. I maybe needed to do some extra lifting because it wasn't too much of a strength focus over there.
Yeah.
So that being aware of nutrition and how much that can play an aspect in your performance and your muscles and all that stuff. So it's a big thing. So all these kids have been aware. Like I did a challenge because some baseball kids wanted to put on some weight.
Yeah.
I had a month where I said, all right, here's a potato challenge month. Add X amount of potatoes to one meal every day for an entire month, and so it gives them some intent, right? They're going after it for a month, and we had some of the kids, a few of the kids put on 5 and 6 pounds in just a month, so it's some of these kids too come in, oh, I'm a hard gainer. I can't gain weight. And it's like, all right, well, let's look at it. Gaining weight means you're not eating enough. Oh, I eat so much. No, you're not. You're not eating enough if you're not gaining weight.
Yeah.
You need more calories. And so these kids are putting in the work. Hey, we need to focus on some nutrition. If you're wanting this goal, then you need to eat this amount or eat more and more until you start seeing the pounds increase on the scale. So the kids, they're asking questions there in the gym. They're finding ways to get better. Like, hey, I saw this or read this. What do you think? Like, yeah. So these kids are aware of the training process and are interested in learning, on their own. So consistently showing up and being invested in the process.
I think a good word you used was intent. Like,
yeah,
there is an intent about what it is that you're trying to do. Tell me a little bit more about it, or explain a little bit more when you use the word intent. What does that mean? What does that look like for the athletes that you have seen that have been successful?
Right. So some of the things with intent is we'll talk about a lifting aspect, right? You might do a set of squats for 10 reps, right? Maybe not thinking about it, it gets kind of hard, the last rep or two. But if you're intentional on every single repetition, focusing on coming down in the squat and driving up strong on every single rep of that 10 reps, that's building intent. And that's better. That'll get you stronger faster than just kind of going through the motions and doing a set. If you're thinking about being intentional with those repetitions, you get stronger, you can get more powerful. Being intentional about just your everyday life, right? I think this goes for anybody, is that sometimes we wake up, we go through the day, and by nighttime it's like, oh man, the day's already gone. I didn't really do much. Yeah. And I've talked to these kids a little bit too about goal setting. So there's a couple things to help you be intentional that I've used is there's a process called 5-3-1. So you make a list, right? So you write out your goal. My goal is to X, right? And about thinking about your goal, list out 5 things you can do that'll take you towards that goal. Right? Of those 5, which 3 are you most likely to do? And of those 3, which one can you start with today?
Okay.
So you just break it down, and it's like, all right, because sometimes for five things might be a lot on somebody's plate if they're trying to change habits and lifestyle. So breaking it down to 3, breaking it down just to one single thing, most likely, more times than not, 3 is pretty good. Like, all right, let's focus on these 3 things, like to start getting better or start taking me towards that goal. So that's one. That one's called 5-3 first. And then there's another one where you can just set a timer, write out 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sit down and write out what you want to accomplish on the athletic field and what you think needs to happen that'll take you towards that thing. And so after you get done writing, because it's like, oh, what do I write? And because I've done this process before with, my gym and the business and whatnot. And you're like, man, what am I going to write? Once you start writing that first sentence, man, things just start flowing by the time 10, 15 minutes is up. Now you just review what you wrote out, and then you figure out what actions you need to start taking to take you towards that thing. So that helps you be intentional about the day or the week, and I have a planner that I write out. I plan on Sundays, I plan out the week. I write in everything I'm doing on my classes, and then I schedule in my workouts after that, schedule in, like, say, podcast interview, whatever. So you just start filling those things in.
Yeah.
And that really brings to light what you need to start doing. Homework between these 2 hours, boom, get it done. Because I have to go to Grimstrong Fitness at this time, and then I have, practice after that, or, so those are some things that help bring intent.
Love that. Love that. So many good things, right? I never heard of the 5-3-1.
Yeah.
That's a great. Where did you come across that? Because that's a really good one.
Yeah. So I joined this group I found. They help personal trainers just with self-development, with the training aspect of things, with the business aspect of things, and then kind of marketing and different things. And so these guys are really good, and that's where I learned that from. They have us all go through this process, and they give us so many tools, and that was one of the tools that I've used with them in the past.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
I have to ask you about that off the podcast. But one thing I really did like that you said was habits, and that kind of goes back to what you were talking about, the consistency. And a quote, actually, it's going to be my quote of the day. It's going to post on my Instagram today. Was one from Octavia Butler, who is a writer. She just talks about, I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, but essentially habits are the things that carry you. Habit is what I really liked, and this is the direct quote from it, is habit is persistent in practice. And so it's like, you want to be consistent, then you need to have habits, and those habits are built by what you do, that one thing that you're doing every single day. And I just think persistence in practice is such a great way to put it. It's just a great way to sum it up. Like, there's so many people who want something, they're not consistent, so they have to start having these habits that they can build and that they can form. But yeah, that's kind of, when you said that, I was like, man, that's so funny that you brought that up.
Yeah, man. I like that, because that just kind of goes to, it's building those habits and being persistent.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes becoming better is uncomfortable, and you have to kind of go over or through these obstacles, and sometimes it might be a little scary the first time you do it, but then the more times you get through or decide to do something uncomfortable, the easier it starts to become for you to start doing those things consistently, and having that persistence, having perseverance through adversity. Is there an injury that pops up? Well, okay, like, what can we do about it? Can you still train upper body if it's a lower body injury? Can you, what are you going to do to start getting better? It's easy to succumb to the, damn, I'm injured, or, these bad things are happening. And but what are we going to do about it? So when you can kind of stand up and start facing those uncomfortable obstacles, the easier it can become to overcome those. Later in life, maybe you come to some more obstacles. Maybe it's later that season or that year, and you're like, okay, I've been here before. This is what I got to do.
How do you help players to remind them of that? Because, we know, I don't know if you've ever seen that meme where it's like what you think progress is, where it's just like a straight line up, and then what progress actually is, and it's like this curve you're going to run. So how do you help players remind them that? I think you spoke on it, but how do you remind players to continue to kind of stay on, our athletes, how do you keep them to stay on that path, even though progress won't be a linear thing?
Yeah, it's I talk with them about, sometimes you might be feeling really good on days and you're showing up to work out, everything's solid, but on having some bad days, like you still got to show up on those bad days. It's just come in. I tell them, come in, punch the clock, just show up. Right. We can adjust training if we need to adjust training. I teach my athletes how to get used to or finding the weights they need to train with, as opposed to finding a max and then using percentages, for their sets and reps. I teach them, all right, here's what I'm looking for. Base it off of how you're feeling for that day. If you're feeling really good, maybe you're going to be doing more weight on that day. Maybe if you're tired, you just had some games. All right, let's scale it back. Let's give you a workout that's going to give more to you than take away.
Yeah,
right?
like that. Yeah.
So I just try to remind them, of these things. Like, look, it's just important for you to show up.
Yeah. That's huge. That's huge. And like, man, I love that. Two things that really that you just said. Well, I start with the one that you literally just said. Like understanding understanding that we want the work that we're doing to add to what we're doing and not take away. And I think so much it's like such a balance. Even with the players who I work with, it's like some of them take it to the far extreme. I'm like, okay, let's be consistent. Let's do this. And then all of a sudden they're doing way more than what they need to do. And then their performance is suffering, right, on the field. And I don't think they understand like how to modulate what they're doing, but understanding that you're not always going to be performing at this level. It's figuring out like, okay, what can I do so that I can be a little bit more consistent? Even when I don't feel like it, how do I continue to stay, how do I continue to stay on track and stay focused is so hard. And I think it's something that's why I love what it is that I do, because more than just being like a coach of a team who has to worry about 15 to 18 players, I can really drill in on this one player or these one group of players and really help them to focus. And I think that's something that you kind of do as well, like being able to help them to really understand like, hey, you can't go all the way all the time, and you're not always going to feel great, but you still have to find that happy medium that's going to continue to help you to progress.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's all about managing stress, right? It's, the soccer practices and games are stress. Weight training is stress. Homework and tests, that's stress,
Yeah.
Girlfriend, boyfriend, what's going on there? Stress.
Yeah.
Ask me out to the homecoming dance,
Yeah. All that stuff.
So, and then, at home or whatever, it's, are you sleeping enough? Are you eating well enough? All that stuff is stress. So it all has to be managed. If you're going hardcore with so many things throughout the week, that's one of the things that can help these parents is that sometimes you might have to scale it back. Like, don't think your kid has to do so much, you know. It's you see it a lot in the baseball side of things with kids getting their shoulders hurt. You know, it's pitchers, right? For instance, like pitching so many games, you know, the spring ball season ends and then summer ball starts. And then after summer ball, fall ball starts, and there's no time off. It's, you know, give a little bit of time off, you know, when it's needed. So it's just that juggling act and knowing kind of what to look for. It's, you know, so.
Yeah. And how do you, kind of touching on that, what do you think about, because I'm sure when you were growing up, because this is how it was for me, like we could play different sports. I could play soccer, I could run cross country, I could play basketball, run track, I could do all these different sports. And now it's like, if you don't train your sport, or if you're not doing your sport 8, 9, 10 months, 11 months out of the year, it's like there's this fear that your player is going to fall behind.
Yeah.
And what do you think? Like, do you buy into that? Do you feel like, you know, how do you kind of, what are your thoughts instead of me trying to?
Yeah, you know, my thoughts are with the long-term athletic development approach, which the multi-sport athlete, you know, time and time again, you'll see on the TV these NFL players, basketball players that are track, basketball, football, you know, athletes. So when you play different sports, you are shown different fields of movement. You know, your body's doing different things that help, say, keep you balanced in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just drilling, you know, soccer, nothing but that, like, number one, your kid can get burned out. Your kid can get burned out from that, you know? So it's good to kind of maybe put the soccer ball up, go play a different sport, you know, put the baseball glove up, go do something different, or even if just putting a summer season off and maybe pick up a strength training plan, that's like a different sport or activity, right? Because we're going to do many different things in the gym that you would not get otherwise. So it's a long-term athletic development approach. And there's a book that I have that's was talking about that, and it was saying, you know, sometimes these kids that grow early and they specialize this and that, sometimes they're a beast athlete as a sophomore in high school, but then after sophomore in high school, people catch up, they're burned out, they're done by senior year, they're not any good to go play college, but you know, they're no longer developing. So I've been telling some of these kids too here, like some of these kids are coming into the developmental stage at the right time, I feel, for their sport, which is baseball, particular kids I'm thinking about. And it's like, look, hey, this is a process. Like, you're coming into it. Some of these kids hey, this kid's throwing 85 as a freshman or sophomore, but a couple kids have mentioned, like, yeah, that they were throwing 85 as a freshman, sophomore. They're still throwing 85 miles per hour as a junior, senior. So it's like, you know, bodies are still growing. Athletes need more movement capacity. So different movement patterns, you know, doing sprints, doing just other things that'll get you better at sports. So I'm not along the lines of, you know, being specific. If you are going to be specific, at least give some time off, find a strength training plan to see what that can give you in your sport. You know, if you can get stronger and leaner, have a better body fat percentage, you will be a better athlete. Your muscle will work more efficiently. You won't have to expend as much energy, you know, sprinting towards the ball as you normally would, right? Maybe your old 100% max effort sprint towards the ball becomes your 70% effort, you know, and you're outrunning these kids, you know. So I'm more along the lines of you need to have your athlete playing different sports, doing different things. Just,
It's
yeah,
just,
you don't want to burn out. You know,
yeah.
I had a kid once that I worked with.
Hmm.
His dad was all baseball, baseball, baseball. He coached his son's team. Kid got to high school, freshman in high school. He got to high school and was like, not playing anymore. I'm
Wow.
done. 13, 14 years old. I'm done. I'm burned out. It's not fun. So
I heard a statistic, Nuns, and I know I've said it a couple times in the podcast. Like, there's something close to the line of like some of these kids are quitting sports, or they're quitting soccer at least, like age 13, like 75% of them are just kind of like done. And it's, I think, partially because of sometimes you're gonna fall off because you're just not good enough anymore. But a lot of times it's because they've been playing this sport. Age 6, I have a player who's in my program now who's like only 10 or 11, and they're having to train 4 times a week. We never trained 4 times a week when I was, probably not even in high school did we train 4 times a week. I think at most we were doing 3 times a week.
yeah,
4 times a week when you're 10 and 11 years old, you're gonna be burned out. Like, your kids are not gonna want to do soccer. And I think the hardest thing is being able to, as a parent, again, I'm not a parent, but like just not buy into, oh, I want my player to be the best, so I have to be doing exactly what everybody else is doing. And like,
yeah,
like being able to kind of take a step back and say, does my kid need to be doing this? Like, do they, like, is this really what they want to do? And can I really make the informed decision of being able to say, maybe 4 time practices are too much a week. Maybe I take them off 2 of those practices or 1 of those practices, and instead I'm getting strength and conditioning training.
yeah,
Or instead I'm getting technical work in, right? But I think it's so hard, and like, some of these teams, I'm sure travel baseball is like the same way, that, it's like, if you're not playing, if you're not coming to practice, you're not going to play. And then now they're penalizing you, but they're not taking what you said, that long-term athletic approach, that athletic development kind of mindset. It's just like, can we win this game this weekend? And then after this game, can we win the next game this weekend, right? Because that's what brings you in more, players or more whatever,
yeah. The other big thing about that too, the drilling just one sport 12 months, in a row, is injury rates. There's research that shows injury rates are higher with kids that are just playing one sport than the multi-sport athlete.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you want your kid to do well, right, you want them to be injury-free, right? Sports are crazy, right? Injuries can happen, but if you can minimize that injury risk by finding a good strength plan, by giving them some time off and letting them play another sport, that's going to take their career further. You'll get farther along and be able to play your sport longer if you do that. You won't have that burnout. You won't have, injuries. So that's a huge thing too. And I know it's tough too for these parents, right? We want the best for our kid, and we feel like a strict schedule every day is the best thing. But some kind of books I've read on childhood development and different things, they talk about how that can be kind of work against you. Like if you just, all right, get home from school, boom, homework, boom, practice, boom, dinner, more homework, whatever. There's no time for them to be themselves, to be free, to have a little bit of just, okay, let me relax, right? So that's where kids can get burned out. It's like, man, I got practice again. I got this, that, and the other. And, I have no social life with my friends, so it's just got to find that balance and realize if you're trying to drill your kid with one sport their entire life, injuries might pop up more often than you think. And you need to have them experience a different sport. So.
Absolutely. Well, Eric, hey, I appreciate it. I know I learned a lot, and I appreciate your expertise and your philosophy when it comes to training and when it comes to development, it comes to just even just the mentality piece on how do you help players to be more consistent. And I enjoyed you talking about intent. What would you say to parents who want to learn a little bit more about Grimstrong? How can they reach out to you? How can they kind of learn more about some of your programs and what you have to offer?
Yeah, so I have a website, grimstrong.com. You can find me on there. Email eric@grimstrong.com as well. You can reach out and, sit down, talk about your athlete. We can do that too. So, and then the social media pages, Instagram, Grimstrong Fitness. You can find me there as well, and Facebook. I have that as well.
Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate that. I'll make sure to link down to all that stuff below this podcast or below wherever you're watching this. So thanks again to Eric for jumping on today, and I'll hopefully be able to talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you.